Welcome to 20 Days of Learning with Illustrator. Let's talk about live shapes. Live Shapes in Illustrator is a collection of tools that can be found right here over here on your toolbar. If you click and hold, you'll see all of the different options for your different live shapes. You've got rectangle tool, ellipse tool, polygon tool, star tool, and a few others. But primarily, I use the rectangle and the ellipse tool, though I will use some of the others from time to time. Once you have the shape tool that you want, you can create your shape either by clicking and designating the dimensions that you want, or you can simply click and drag to create your shape. Something you'll need to be familiar with when you work with live shapes is your fill and your stroke color. Over here on the left, you can see I have right now no fill and I have a stroke that is red. I can easily change these by double clicking and then selecting from my color picker any color that I want. A couple handy keyboard commands in relation to your stroke and your fill is using X. When I press X on my keyboard, you'll notice that the stroke and fill changes focus over in the left side panel. Another handy keyboard shortcut is if I hold Shift and press X, it will swap out my stroke and my fill on whatever object I currently have selected. I use this a lot, actually a lot more than I ever thought I would, but it's a really handy keyboard function. Speaking of keyboard functions, another feature you want to be aware of is using Shift, Control, and Alt when you draw your live shapes. For example, if I'm drawing an ellipse and I hold Shift, the proportions of my ellipsis will be constrained so that I always create a perfect circle. If I create an ellipse and click Alt, you'll notice that it grows from the center out rather than when I click and draw out from the top left. Finally, there's Control, where if I click and drag holding Control, it will keep the edge of my shape right on with my cursor so that I can place it precisely where I want the edge. Shift, Control, and Alt can actually change a little bit depending on the object that I'm creating, but for the most part they stay consistent with the shape tools. One more keyboard command that's handy is when you're drawing both polygons and stars. When I create a polygon, when I click and drag out, I can change the total number of corners and edges I have by using the up and down keys on my keyboard. Now that we've drawn some shapes, let's see how these tools work in action. Let's go ahead and draw a ticket. I'm going to jump over to my shape tool, grab a rectangle, and give myself the basic outline or the basic structure of a ticket. Now I'll zoom in. I'm going to create some corners. And then using the transform properties panel, I'm going to click on the three dots and then adjust these corners to be inverted corners. This is something I can only do with a live shape tool. I think I like that, but let's go ahead and make those using my selection tool. I'm going to go ahead and make those corners a little bit different. Now I want to add the edge of my tickets. To do that, I'm going to use the polygon tool to give myself some triangles. Hit down. There we go. We'll make them kind of small. I'm also finding that these strokes are really throwing me off, so I'm going to select everything here and I'm going to select my stroke, click on none so that I have no stroke. I'm going to zoom in. Come down, let's rotate our triangle by coming up to the right and hold Shift so that it rotates in 45-degree increments. Then let's go ahead and expand this down, kind of make it small. Then I'm going to use my direct selection tool by hitting A and then select only the point of my triangle. That way I can round it off, but it's only going to be the one point. There we go. I like that right there. Now let's go ahead and drag it up and kind of line it right up with. All right, we'll go with that. I like that well enough. Now I'm going to use some keyboard commands that I use frequently when I draw with shapes. First, I'm going to hold Alt and click on my shape. This makes it so that when I drag away, instead of moving my current object, it's going to create a duplicate. The second thing I'm going to do is hold Shift. This makes it so that as I move the shape, it aligns with my previous object at 45-degree angles. And I want to move this down until it's just right at the end and it intersects there. Now, another keyboard command that's really handy is holding Control and clicking D. This just duplicates whatever the previous action is that I did before. In this case, copying my little shape there. Now, notice it's not quite lined up. There's things I could do about this, but in this case, since I'm just working with shapes, I'm going to go ahead and drag that down just so that it lines right up. And it's not perfect, but it looks pretty good. Now to get these little ripples on the other side, let's select just the ripples. So I'm going to make it so that my line goes through just the ripples there. Hold Alt and drag. I'm going to hold Shift as well so that it stays lined up. Now come up to the corner and rotate the whole thing as a whole. Hold Shift so that it moves in 45-degree increments, and then hold Shift, drag it right up against the end of that ticket. And then maybe bump it over just a little bit using my keyboard. All right, that looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but I think that works good enough for just working with shapes. So I can create some really simple shapes. That's the Shapes tool. It's pretty straightforward. The nice thing is the more you learn in Illustrator, the more you'll be able to do with these shapes. Thanks. I hope you learned something. Have a fantastic day. Bye.